Hi, I'm Curious Vedant, and welcome to season 6 of my podcast. Today, my guest is Rohini Kamath, Program Manager, Corporate Social Responsibility or CSR at Cisco in India. She manages the India Cash Grant Program for Cisco India and is also a co leader of the Cancer Support Network India. Hi, Rohini. Welcome to my show.
Hi, Vedant. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I'm really excited to interview you.
I've never been interviewed by a 10-year-old, so this is a first for me, and I'm sure it's the first for several of your guests. So I'm super excited about what we have ahead of us.
All right, so let's start. So, Rohini, I'm curious to know, what does corporate responsibility mean?
Sure. Before I answer the question on what exactly corporate social responsibility is, let me talk to you a little bit about what Cisco does, because it's very important that you know the company a little better before I continue to talk about what CSR means in the context of Cisco. So today, just the way to get from one place to another, a road becomes a very, very important aspect of physical life on which you can have a car go, you can have a truck go, you can have a bicycle, you can even have a pedestrian. Similarly, Cisco is in the business of building the roads of the internet. So anybody who uses the internet today in one way or another is leveraging something that Cisco has built for you, be it the connection through your mobile phone, be it through the router at your house. A lot of the roadways of the internet are built by Cisco. So that's a little bit about Cisco. Now, coming to your question on corporate social responsibility, right? So, corporate social responsibility, or what is popularly referred to as CSR, is a commitment by companies and businesses to contributing to the well being of the society around them and various environmental and social measures. It's been around for several years and has come and gone in several formats. But its corporate social responsibility is one of the most popular terminologies. It's a way for profit making entities, businesses, to devote time, effort, and funds towards alleviating prominent causes and issues within the society. In some cases, it refers to only the company led giving, where the company makes commitments, which may or may not be philanthropic in nature. In certain other cases, it could also cover things like employee volunteering, employee giving, and so on and so forth. So, that in a nutshell is probably what I could talk about, describe CSR for you.
Oh, that seems like a fun job. So basically, it's like helping build roads for the internet.
That is what Cisco does. The company that I work for and the company that I represent builds the roads of the internet.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it definitely is. And in so many ways, I mean, we don't realize because there are so many other technology brands that we're very familiar with. But at the backbone, at the back end of everything, as the backbone, you have the internet, and the connections of the internet are in so many ways built by a company like Cisco.
Yeah, I just realized the Wi-Fi routers in my school, they're made by Cisco.
They are, aren't they? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, networking is one of the core businesses for Cisco, and hardware is a big component of the business that Cisco runs.
Can you share a little about the India Cash Grant Program and how it benefits the community?
Absolutely. So the India Cash Grant Program came into existence post the Companies Act in India of 2013. So around 2013, 2014, there was a law that was passed in India that mandated that qualifying companies based in India had to earmark 2% of their profits towards supporting causes in the community. And that's when the India Cash Grant Program came into existence. Else, all grant making for Cisco is managed through the Global Impact Cash Grant Program that is run by a team that's headquartered in the US. Coming to India now, the program that we run, my team and I run in India, is focused on three primary areas. One is called critical human needs and crisis response. The second is education. And the third is economic empowerment. Now, under these, there are various sub-themes or subsectors as well, but and a lot of this information is also available on our website. But to keep this conversation very simple and basic, these are the three focus areas that we make grants in. So, the impact, for example, when you say how does it benefit the society, right? It could vary. For example, the benefit in healthcare could be very, very different. The impact in healthcare could be very different from what it could be in education, right? Where perhaps in education, a technology-led tool can help children gain competencies in math in a shorter duration or in a much better manner. So the benefit of it could be varied, and it's very hard to quantify as just one thing. But it's it's definitely one of the right things for companies to do overall to grant and to invest in programs that benefit the society as a whole.
I never knew about the India Cash Grant Program.
Yeah, a lot of the law in India is relatively new. Of course, now it's going to be close to a decade now. But it's very unique to the country, and it presents opportunity for a lot of investment to be made to solve societal issues in the country.
Wow, because in other organizations, in India, I've never heard of them refer to anything like that.
I see. Okay, that's interesting. Also, there's a qualifying criteria. You need to have a revenue of a certain amount and all of that. It's a little more technical. Maybe some of the organizations that you've spoken to or representatives that you've spoken to are from organizations that don't necessarily qualify, or maybe this is a topic that just didn't come up.
Well, that's interesting, and it's really nice that the government made a law to help the poorer people in the society.
Sure, yeah. I think the law has helped for everybody to become a lot more aware of the problems around us, and also think through the lens of individuals who are underserved and solve a lot of those of the problems that are most relevant to them.
Yeah, I wish they had that in other countries.
Yeah. There are several aspects to it, but it would be interesting to see how it would be implemented across other countries if it had to be done.
There are so many causes. How do you keep track and stay updated about all the current societal issues and needs in India? And then how do you decide which charitable initiatives to fund through your program?
That's an interesting one. And that's true, right? At any given point of time, you're just surrounded by so many problems that need solutions and that can benefit from the support of various funders, grantors, donors, right? However, in order to function in a very systematic manner, what helps is a clear strategy and a clear framework. Now, at the heart of every grant that we make, we look at the role that technology can play, given that we are a company that believes in the power of digital and believes in the power of technology. We are very focused on what is the role that technology is playing in solving for that particular problem. And what is very, very interesting is Cisco as a business has this purpose of powering an inclusive future for all. So CSR on one side, ESG reporting on another side, all of that. There is also the entire theme of purpose and what purpose can do for your business. So given that it is centered around more inclusive futures, we look at how technology becomes a factor for inclusion and not necessarily exclusion. Because today, technology can also play that role, right, of only being available to a certain set of people and not to anybody, and not being available to a lot of others. So we also focus on what is the role that technology is playing inclusively in delivering a solution, and that's a very critical component of the decision around the grant. And thirdly, how let's say an applicant approaches measurement, because we are very keen on understanding and partnering with organizations that have a clarity in approach to measurement. So if you're solving for a particular problem. What aspect of the particular problem are you solving, and how are you demonstrating the impact of what you're able to do becomes a very critical component of decision making. So, keeping all these things in mind, we look at, of course, I've defined the three focus areas before. So, at an intersection of all of this, we are able to clearly identify organizations and projects that are most relevant or align most well aligned themselves to our grant making philosophy.
Wow, so it's really complicated. So it isn't just it isn't just saying they look like they need help. How about we donate? How about we donate some of our money to them?
There are organizations that take a completely philanthropic approach to giving, which is exactly what you talked about, right? Where you find out, let's say, of a school near close to where your office is that probably needs some kind of infrastructural support, right? And you go out there and you make that, you offer support to them and you help them. However, a lot of corporates also, and a lot of organizations also choose to be a little strategic. And it's a choice, right, of wanting to do more philanthropic grant making or more strategic grant making. In a strategic grant making process, you have a slightly more granular framework that helps you make those decisions. Because in certain cases, a philanthropic investment grant, right, you might not be able to replicate multiple times. You might not be able to scale it. So you're helping this school. Tomorrow you're helping 10 schools. Day after tomorrow you have to help hundreds of schools. And you only have a limited amount of funding available, right? So given the constraints of the availability of funding, organizations choose an approach that works well for us, works well for them. In our case, we've taken a slightly strategic approach to grant making.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Yeah, it's one way to look at things. And again, yeah, that's a choice.
Yeah, because at the same time, if you do what I said, you might end up losing all the funding money that you actually need.
I wouldn't call it losing money, but then there's only so much that we can do. There's no replicability there, but that's fine too. I think in a country like India, where we're faced with multiple challenges and we see that there are so many individuals who need that helping hand, it's not a bad thing to do, but it's at the end of the day, the choice that comes into play. Yeah,
and by losing, I didn't mean like the bad kind.
Yeah.
It's not the good kind. Like something like you don't have the money that you actually need.
Yeah, when there's something equally important that comes knocking at your door, and if you don't have the funding, then what do you do, right? Which is why we take a slightly structured approach to be able to evaluate all the proposals and ideas that come to our table.
Yeah. What is payroll giving and how does it work?
That's a good segue from the conversation that we were just having. So, simply put, employees of various organizations are encouraged to pledge to support charitable institutions, causes through volunteering and giving. Right? They can either volunteer, they spend their time, or give through monetary donations. Right. However, to make the monetary donation component, the process needs to be simple. Otherwise, imagine an individual who wants to make a donation, but having to go through a very rigorous process. That sort of makes it a little hard for an individual to give. So an easy way for an employee to give is through payroll giving, where a certain pre-committed amount or a pledged amount by an employee is deducted either once or in a recurring manner decided by the employee from their salary. So before the salary is credited to the employee, a certain amount is deducted and then the salary is credited to the employee. At the end of the month, then the team that manages payroll for a company accumulates the entire money basis the different charitable organization, and through a vendor or an agency that they work with, ensure that whatever is the amount goes to those respective organizations. This makes the process very, very easy for an employee, right? And one of the areas where it becomes especially helpful is, let me give you an example. Let's say the cost of supporting the education of a student, just some part of their tuition fee in India is about 30,000 rupees, right? to make a one-time donation, that's a significant amount for a lot of people that work in companies. However, if you were to break it down into smaller chunks, right, and maybe pledge 3,000 rupees every month or a little less than 3,000 rupees every month, then in 10 months, you easily hit your target and you're able to support something solid or something quantifiable, like the education of a child. That's where payroll giving can play a very crucial role in helping employees give often and give more efficiently.
How do you decide how much money goes into each payroll you give out?
That's up to you. So there are several tools, there are several platforms and products that various companies use, where an employee just has to go in before a certain date. So let's say maybe before the 5th of a month or the 10th of a month, and they decide, right, that they want to pledge, let's say, 1,000 rupees towards a particular organization. They have the choice of also saying, I want to do it as a one-time donation, I want to do it as a recurring donation. They have that choice. And then that amount automatically gets deducted. So for that, you definitely have to use different tools and services that are provided by multiple agencies.
So you can decide how much you want to give.
Yes, you get to decide how much you want to give, and you also have the satisfaction of being able to do something quantifiable, right? Especially in the case of in the example that I gave, to support the education of a child is extremely important. And if you were to not be able to do it, and if you weren't in a position to make a one-time commitment, then you would probably say, no, I'll look at something else to do. But through payroll giving and through recurring donations, you have the ability to put your weight behind slightly more significant commitments that can help an individual do better tomorrow.
Yeah, because it feels really nice helping somebody.
True, very true.
Yeah. Can you share more about how the Cancer Support Network India?
Sure, I can. So within Cisco, and this I don't do as part of my regular job, this is something that I'm passionate about. Cisco has what are known as inclusive communities and networks, which is basically informal groups of individuals that come together centered around a particular cause, right? For example, we have a network called Special Children Group, which is focused predominantly on extending support to parents of children with special needs. It helps them create an environment where they can come and discuss some of the challenges, brainstorm on ideas, and be there as a support system for each other. We have another one that is for adult caregivers, which is basically for individuals, employees who are caregivers to their parents and need support, because for various ailments, the kind of support that you need to provide as a caregiver is very, very different. So these groups basically become very, very important support systems for people to talk to each other, bounce ideas off each other, and sometimes just be there, right? To lend a shoulder to someone who's going through a really difficult time. I joined the Cancer Support Network in India in 2020 when it first came together, and at that point, I was a team member. Last year, I took on the role of the co-lead for the India chapter. And the and I've been very passionate about the cause after seeing two very, very important people in my life go through a really challenging battle of cancer, especially when it came to diagnosis, treatment, just the kind of varied opinions that you get, be it from doctors, be it from other caregivers. So I felt like there was a need to do something more for this cause that I felt very strongly about. And the focus for the Cancer Support Network in India is, one, to create a lot of awareness about multiple topics around cancer itself. Each cancer is so different, and there's so much that one needs to understand about each of these forms of cancer. So we look at awareness around cancer diagnosis, prevention, etc. We also look at breaking stigma around cancer, because there's always, cancer normally elicits a very depressing sort of response in people. However, there are ways of dealing with it in a more positive light. We look at focusing on that a lot more. We also help within the community. There are several people who are either going through the treatment or are caregivers to people who are going through cancer treatment. So we look at connecting each one of them, connecting these people. There are people who ask questions about, is this form of treatment better? What was your experience with a different format of treatment? So we help them talk to each other and make informed choices. And then if there are benefits aligned to cancer support, we also look at advocating for that within the larger people and community, the HR function of Cisco. We look at advocating for it as a group. So that's just a little bit about the Cancer Support Network and what I do as part of the network.
Can you share some success stories from your time with them?
So do you want me to share success stories with regard to the Cancer Support Network?
Yes.
Okay, sure. So we recently had a very, very young employee reach out frantically just a day, and this is an employee who had actually put down his or her papers, and their last day at Cisco was a week away, and he had just been diagnosed with a form of cancer. And of course, as is anybody who has a diagnosis, there's always a lot of anxiety around it. They're wondering what's happening. So they reached out, and we immediately facilitated a connect with Cisco. Has a group of doctors within Cisco that employees have access to. So we reached out, we connected them to the doctor. We asked the doctor to prioritize this particular individual because his last day was just around the corner, last day at Cisco, since he was leaving Cisco. And he was leaving Cisco to go abroad for higher education. So he was all the more concerned now. And that's when the doctor spoke to him. They also helped him have an expert medical consultation, which is an additional benefit that Cisco offers. Where some of the best, Cisco creates access to some of the best physicians globally who can give you a second opinion on a particular treatment routine basis your condition. That was also facilitated. And I remember the employee pinged me just a day before leaving saying, he was very thankful for the support we offered because now he's a little more reassured that, the path that he's going on is the right path. And there's a lot more that he can do to help himself. And he felt a lot more reassured after these conversations and the second opinion. So that for me was a big win. And I think these are things that are very unique to a company like Cisco. It's very core to our culture to be there for each other, to help each other. So that was, that experience really made my day. And especially when that individual helped me, when my colleague pinged me and told me about it, it put a big smile on my face, to just say the least.
Is the Cancer Support Network only for Cisco employees, or can anyone reach out to you?
So right now, the Cancer Support Network in Cisco is for Cisco employees. However, we've had instances of employees reaching out saying a very close friend of mine or my neighbor's child has been diagnosed with a certain form of cancer. Is there any suggestion is there anybody with experience of having dealt with a cancer of this kind? And then somebody always chips in. So to a large extent, it's utilized mostly by employees within Cisco. And it is a Cisco specific group, but there are several such informal groups within companies and within also run by NGOs, by several not-for-profit organizations as well, that are there to provide support to to individuals who are either going through cancer treatment or have just been diagnosed, and so on and so forth. So there's the India Cancer Society. They have a helpline as well. Within Bangalore, there's a lovely institution called Karuna Shraya, or the Bangalore Hospice Trust, that does some fabulous work around cancer. And they have their own informal groups that individuals, that the public can also access.
That's good to know.
Yeah. There's a lot that's happening now compared to where we were maybe a decade ago. So there are resources. It's just that it sometimes takes you a little longer than usual to find the right kind of resources for yourself.
Yeah, but at least you have access to them.
True, very true.
What kind of challenges do you face while implementing a charitable giving strategy for your payroll system?
So for the payroll system, it's slightly different, Vedant. For the payroll system, it's very open-ended. Employees have the option to nominate organizations of their choice. So today I could be very passionate about animal welfare. So there's a different process of nominating an organization and getting an organization within a system. However, what I could probably shed a little more light on is probably the challenges around the strategy in implementing the India Cash Grant program or implementing the CSR side of what I do, right? One of the, and like you pointed out in an earlier question, right? To me, one of the biggest challenges is that we cannot support everybody. There's so many good, meaningful causes, um, meaningful projects that come our way that I that we really that I think it would be really great if we could support. But given that we have a limited amount of funding, it's always hard to be able to say no to certain applicants, right? So that definitely is a personal challenge for me, and I feel really bad about it, but it is what it is. The other challenge, perhaps, that I would talk about is more at a like an ecosystem level, right? Within industry. You heard from me that funding is always limited. There's only so much money, but there are so many problems to solve. What would be great is if 2-3 corporates could come together to work together to sort of add a layered approach. So let's say even in education, if there's a corporate A is focused on providing midday meals, right? Sponsoring midday meals in the school. In the same school, corporate B could help with the infrastructural requirements, like better classrooms, better toilets, some of those things, right? And corporate C could come in and help with all the educational requirements. Let's say if there are teachers in the school, then look at their training, their capacity building, and etc. If there is a shortage of teachers, maybe help with supplementary teachers. So coming together to solve a problem collectively is quite rare. And it would be great if there could be more and more corporates that could come together. We've had a very successful collaboration with 2 other corporates called JP Morgan and Accenture on a project called Future Right Skills Network with an organization called Quest Alliance. So we've been able to do it, but we'd love to be able to do more of it. And then lastly, maybe at more an organization level or a project level, in certain cases where we have to get permissions from government stakeholders, sometimes it tends to take a little longer than anticipated. So there are delays there. Finding the right kind of people to work on projects, because talent is, again, a resource that's quite scarce, and good talent is often hard to find. So that's another challenge, I would say. And sometimes young organizations, their processes, systems aren't very thorough. So I wouldn't call it a challenge. I would say that presents an opportunity for the grantor to work very closely to build that capacity within the corporate. So some of those build that capacity within the implementing agency or the NGO. So some of those things are probably opportunities rather than challenges in the sector.
Yeah, I think I meant the cash grant program, not the payroll giving.
Okay. Cool. I'm glad you got the answer then for what you were looking at, right?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
I got a little confused.
This is a lot of this is definitely a complex topic for people to understand. So I hope I'm able to do it some justice by breaking it down into as granular a format as can be delivered.
Oh yeah, I'm understanding it really nicely.
That's great.
Is there a way to measure the impact of the cash grant program and the initiatives it funds?
Oh yes, there is. And measurement is extremely important, because otherwise, how do you know if what you're doing is actually yielding a positive result on the ground, right? So there are some complex approaches. There's something called SROI, which is social return on investments. Then there's the more traditional economic evaluation. So these are terms that one might come across, and they have complex frameworks. These are quite cost intensive and time consuming to implement, right? Cisco gives the highest priority and funding consideration to proposals that clearly articulate the planned results of their efforts. and the metrics by which those results will be measured. We look at organizations that use a framework or use the SMART metrics approach, which basically stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely indicators. So when there is a project that comes to us, we look at what is it that the organization is able to measure, and how are they going about measuring it. Because in certain cases, there might be projects where an organization wants to measure something, but they don't really have the data to be able to measure a particular indicator. So this framework helps us uh, evaluate proposals, and there are a lot of projects, a lot of organizations that come with impact reports that they've carried out studies in the past to measure the impact of their programs and initiatives. We also try to look at how they've been validated by an independent party, or how thorough is their approach. Why did they choose one particular way of say measurement versus another, or even impact assessment versus another. So there are certain very technical things that one can do to evaluate proposals, and we most definitely do. We also do this with the knowledge that in certain cases, there are organizations that mean very well, that want to do the right thing, but might need a little bit of hand holding and support to sharpen their approach. So not everything needs to be like at 100% mark. There might be some that are at the 75% mark and just need a little more support to be a little more a lot more concrete in what they want to measure and report.
So, in the cash grant program, do you choose who you want to give the money to, or do people come and give proposals for the money?
Good question. So we do source a lot of ideas, right? We get a lot of proposals. We have a website, an external facing website through which people can understand our programs. And let's say there's an organization that's interested, they can reach out and understand it a little better. So the first level of filter is something that we put, right? The program team puts, and there are certain proposals that just don't make the cut for us, right? It's not aligned to our grant making philosophy. So once we vet at the first level, then we get it to the second stage where we make the proposal a little more concrete. We look at several aspects, including the financial components of the budget proposal for the particular project. We go through line items, we fine tune it, and then we present it in front of a board. So, given that there's a lot of compliance associated to the 2% India CSR program, there is a structure that needs to be in place. So we have a board of key leadership stakeholders from Cisco that come together. And once the pitch is made by the organization to the board makes a final decision basis the criteria that I've called out, which also includes measurement. So I or my team doesn't get to directly make the decision, but we get to filter the proposals that come to us.
That sounds fun.
Oh, it's fun, but at the same time, it's a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, it sounds really fun having lots of companies come to you. And it also must be really nice to learn all the ways the companies would like to use the money.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And you get to meet so many passionate individuals who are very driven about the causes that they support. A lot of them who've chosen to be in this space, even though they had lucrative careers waiting for them, right? Having chosen to want to come and make a difference is very inspiring. And I'm quite privileged to have the opportunity to be able to do that.
Yeah, you are. Can you tell us about a particularly meaningful or impactful project that you have been a part of at Cisco India?
Sure. So through the cash grant program, one of the programs, and actually last year had the opportunity to also, after COVID, be able to go on site, be able to be on the field, meet the people that I'd only been seeing on calls. So this one's really special because it also focuses on young mothers and young women in rural parts of the country. So we work with a partner on a project called Niramai in the state of Assam in the northeast of India. And Assam particularly has, as does a lot of the states in the northeast, challenging weather terrains. Right, there's heavy flooding almost every year in Assam. So in these circumstances, how do how does one access healthcare and access public healthcare? Now, when it comes to you and me, we have the ability to walk to the nearest clinic or get on a teleconsultation and seek the kind of advice that we do. But what about individuals in rural setups where even basic phone connectivity is really hard, right? So the government has set up what are known as primary healthcare centers. And these primary healthcare centers are located in different blocks of districts within states. So through Project Niramai, what happens is the government appointed health worker, they're known as ASHA workers. They collect the data of individuals within communities, and it's all collected through an application. What they also do is, while collecting data, they know about in the target population who are expectant mothers, young women who are going to have babies soon, who are individuals who have certain diseases, right, within the community. So they're able to identify all this and keep a record of this. And for the sake of this conversation, maybe I'll focus a little bit more on the expectant mothers, right? What they're able to do is, given depending on how far along they are in their pregnancy, able to prescribe to them, able to, sorry, not prescribe, encourage them to go and seek consultations in the public healthcare center, right? Once they go there, the doctors there, through technology powered devices, are able to measure their blood sugar, their BP, all of that. And through all these measurements, they are able to provide the expectant mother with the right kind of guidance on what she should be eating to ensure that she stays healthy, the baby is healthy, and she has a institutional delivery. In a lot of cases, what happens is individuals don't choose to go into facilities for birth. They don't go into a medical facility for birth. They end up having the child at home, where there is absolutely no medical support that can be provided. And that presents a lot of risk to the child as well as the mother. When women avail of these services in a systematic manner, there is a better chance of them going into the institution for their delivery where they have the baby. And that's a much better place, and that's a better opportunity, a better likelihood for the mother and child to have a safe delivery and birth, right? Some of these things are enabled through one of the projects that we support, and technology plays a very critical role in ensuring that continuum of care, right from the time the woman identifies that she is pregnant till the time she has the baby, and even after that, because the baby has to come in for immunization, for vaccination. So they're able to track that entire journey to ensure that the early age of the baby and this critical period in the woman's life, she has the right kind of medical support. So that for me, and I had the opportunity to meet some of these mothers when I traveled to Assam last year. I had the opportunity to talk to the doctors in these centers, and it's very heartwarming to see how passionate and dedicated they are to their work, and just the kind of challenges in which they work. In fact, one of the PHCs hardly had electricity for the time that I was there. And another one got flooded just the week before. In fact, the walls had stains of, the flooded water there. The chairs had cushions that were completely drenched because it had rained so heavily and the entire center had got flooded. So they had to come out and just set up. I mean, they had to still see the patients that were coming in under a tree, right? Because they had to continue to give support. So we were it was heartwarming, and at the same time, I felt really good about all the good work that's happening around us.
Yeah, it's really nice to see that even though the hospital is flooded, that they're still trying to give support to all the patients.
Yes, yes. There's a lot of commitment, and they're very well-meaning individuals. They want to do the right thing, but of course, there are several other challenges that come along the way. But the primary intent is still very, very positive.
Yeah. What made you choose to work in the CSR program? What did you want to be as a child?
Hmm. That's that takes me back um, to yeah. So no, I was just thinking. So I was very very keen on becoming a veterinarian. So all my school life, I was very clear that I wanted to become a veterinary doctor. However, I realized that I don't have the courage to, see blood or to like even like I used to I mean growing up when my dog had to be taken to the veterinarian for an injection, I would just hide my face because I couldn't see him being injected. So that's when I clearly realized that although I'm passionate about animals, I don't have the courage to look at to be a veterinarian. And then at one point of time, I toyed with the idea of dabbling in journalism. I, in fact, did study journalism. Um, but later on, I wanted to work on I worked in animal rights. And I think that's when, while working in animal rights, is where I also looked at the larger picture um, of what education has done for me and how important education is for everybody. So you then have the ability to make your own choices. And there was also the time where I observed that there were fewer people on the corporate side with the kind of experience and knowledge of challenges that exist in the NGO space. So that's when I chose to, I decided that, I definitely wanted to pursue a career in corporate social responsibility.
Oh, that's really nice. I've also interviewed a few other people who wanted to be things like brain surgeons or doctors, but when they saw it, they were like, "No, I can't."
No, oh, that is very reassuring. I thought I was the only one that was so scared of blood, but good to know that there are more people like me.
Like one of my friends wanted to be a scientist,
Uh
and
huh.
and then she saw the the chemical symbols for one of the vitamins, and she's like, "Oh no, I can't
No, not.
memorize all of these."
Yeah, I'm glad she had the opportunity to find out about that early on. Imagine like signing up for a program and then realizing that learning more about chemicals and symbols is not her cup of tea or his or her cup of tea.
Yeah. What are your hobbies?
um I love eating and I love food. So as a result of that, I also love to cook. I do a lot of cooking even to unwind and relax. Besides that, I'm very passionate about low waste and I would say largely a minimalist sort of lifestyle where you don't accumulate too many material things. And so somewhere there between low waste, consuming low waste products to having a lifestyle that's a little more low waste focused. Um, uh, Learning more about that is something that I'm quite interested in, and I spend a lot of my time, free time, doing that. And lastly, last 2 years back during COVID, I decided to pursue Bharatanatyam. It was something that I always had at the back of my mind, and COVID gave me a very good opportunity to do that. So I'm also learning Bharatanatyam now. So wherever possible, I wouldn't call it a hobby, but it's something that I definitely enjoy and do whenever time permits. In addition to, of course, I have classes through the week, but over and above that, I do enjoy learning Bharatanatyam when I have time.
Yeah. That's dancing, right? A kind of dancing.
Yes, that is one particular format of classical dance.
Yeah. I learned the drums. I have lessons every week.
Oh, that's nice. Did you choose the instrument or yeah?
Yeah.
And why drums?
I don't know. I just really like the sound of it, and it's really fun to play.
Is it? Okay. I should look up videos of you playing. Do you have any videos of you playing the drums? Okay.
I even played in a concert.
How awesome is that? Okay, I'm gonna ask your mom and dad to send me videos. I didn't know this about you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thank you for having me, Vedant. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's been really fun interviewing you. This was really fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I apologize if there were certain concepts that were a little confusing or overwhelming, but I tried my best to break it down and keep it as simple as possible.
No, it was really nice. I understood it really nicely. I learned a lot.
That's great. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Dear listeners, follow my Facebook page, Curious Vedan, to get updates on my upcoming episodes. To listen at pleasure on your phone and get notified about future episodes, subscribe by searching for Curious Vedan wherever you get your podcasts, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can also listen to my show on CuriousVedan.com. Thank you for listening to Curious Vedan. And don't forget to rate and leave comments.